Hey everyone, my name is Kevin and welcome to Postman Live. I've got Ian here with me today and we've got a really fun stream planned for you all. Not sure if you saw some of the pictures in New York City last week with the crazy orange skies. Did you see that, Ian?
I saw them. They were really wild. Yeah.
It was definitely like some apocalypse kind of quality air going on. I saw
So
people
we
like, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say we decided for a very timely stream this week. We were actually gonna play on that theme a little bit. Go ahead, Kev.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like for the stream, it could be a cool idea to build some tools around, say, like a weather API to reflect the weather and but also like display other kinds of alerts, such as air quality, a fire, something like that. And I know that we like to do a lot of IoT related stuff, so maybe we could tie that into the title.
Yeah, for sure.
But the problem is, let's say like hypothetically, I don't know how to make these requests to do something like this. I mean, I'm imagining we're working with two different APIs to get the weather, to get the to control like IoT lights, that kind of stuff. So maybe you could help me with that,
Sure.
building those requests, and then start to put the pieces together with flows where I can kind of assemble the Lego blocks, so to say, visually with Postman flows.
Yeah, the nice thing about working together as a team in Postman is as a developer, I've got a pretty good idea of like what these APIs are, how to use them, how to interact with them, and sort of like, as we say, kind of like build the little block, and then Kevin builds like the cool little model once you get all the blocks kind of put together. So Kevin's pretty familiar with flows. I'm pretty familiar as a dev, like putting together requests and adding things like pre-request scripts and test scripts and things like that. But maybe Kevin doesn't understand the programming side as much. But having a visual tool like Flows is going to make it really easy for Kevin to kind of glue all these things together and make some kind of cool overall workflow of, let's go check the air quality and turn the light a different color kind of thing. So we've got a whole bunch of different things set up. We've made a public workspace that we'll share with everybody, that we kind of got started a little bit, and we forked over the controls for my lights back here, or there's one light bar at least going back up here behind me. And Kevin's basically going to turn that different colors based on these different other API calls that I'm going to set up. So we've got an API in mind. They've actually got a public API collection, but I'm going to show you as a developer like how I might go in and like build some of these requests from scratch. But we're going to show you like how to search for their public collection, their public API, that you can actually go fork and you can see like the whole realm of stuff that this one API does. But I'm just going to pick and choose a couple of them for today, and then Kevin will put it together in flows.
Cool. I mean, I'm excited. This sounds like a really fun stream.
Yeah.
While I'm at it, actually, let's get the chat up on the screen so people could say hi, maybe let us know where you're from. But in the meantime, do you want to do like a little bit of an introduction and maybe I know today's a pretty big day in terms of releases.
Yeah, for sure. So normally we have a segment on our stream called "In Case You Missed It." Today we're actually going to change it up a little bit and call it "You Don't Want to Miss It," because today is release day, and we've got a ton of stuff for sure. So I'm gonna paste this link in LinkedIn. Kevin, if you want to paste this blog link in, like for everyone else, like on Twitch and YouTube, that'd be helpful. I'll put
Yeah.
it in our private chat here and restream. We have just the team has been really busy setting up and prepping a whole ton of blog posts. But we've got a bunch that I've kind of like hand chosen that I want to talk about today, because there are a couple of things coming in the release today that are pretty amazing. Some of them are going to be enterprise only, but some of them are available for everyone, that I'd love to kind of showcase a little bit. So, Kevin, if you can share my screen real quick,
Yeah, so
then
let's
we'll
nudge the
show this
chat
to you.
off real quick. We'll still
Yeah.
see your messages, but you won't see them.
Yeah. And we got folks from all over the place. We got Israel, India. I saw Russia. We got East Coast in North Carolina. We got Ukraine. We got Brazil. We got more
Poland and
Brazil. We got
Bangalore.
Nigeria. Yeah, it's great having people from all over the place. So hello everyone. So yeah, definitely go check out our blog. We've got just a ton of stuff, like just blog post after blog post after blog post. So I kind of handpicked a couple to kind of talk about today. So I love using the command line. I'm a big fan of command line stuff. Well, it turns out our Postman CLI now you can actually version your API with this dash dash name parameter now. So when you're working with an API, you can actually publish that API to the API network using the command line. And you can actually tie this in with GitHub release as well. And so if you're doing like a GitHub release and you're doing like a release or something like that, you could probably pull that in as an environment variable, pass it into Postman CLI and like version your API that way. So definitely want to check that out. I love playing around with Postman CLI. Another thing that we're introducing is a way to tag your API, and then you can actually search on those tags. And this blog post is a little bit longer, but it kind of goes through like how to actually go in and actually build out the tags for what you want to do, how you want to sort of tag that API, but then how you can search the within Postman. Let me zoom in here a little bit. You can actually use that search up here to search for those tags to find APIs with those tags. And then you can also click on those tags as well and say like, show me other like external APIs or show me other billing related APIs. So really powerful way to sort of enhance the search opportunities within Postman. This one I think is going to be a new favorite for a lot of people. We're introducing a way to do performance testing within Postman. So you can now do performance load testing right inside of Postman. So when you're going through and you build out the collection, you want to run the collection, there's going to be a new performance tab that you can click on, and you can specify like how many virtual users you want to set up, any kind of like ramp up that you want to do, the duration of it, all this kind of stuff. And the nice thing is this does not run in the Postman cloud. This is all running on your own local network. So you don't have to worry about the cloud performance or that you're giving anything to us. This is going to set up all this stuff just virtually within your own environment and get into some really cool performance testing, and then all kinds of graphing and stuff like that as far as like what that performance is going to look like. So definitely want to try that one out. As we move into kind of shifting into more of the enterprise kind of stuff, this one's actually going to be available for everybody. We're going to do this thing called scaffolding to kind of build out a little bit more around your API, especially if you use OpenAPI specification version 3. There's some really cool stuff in here where we'll kind of get you started. We want to like really help with that automation of like, let's get you rolling on this so that other people can get using your API that much faster. So there's a lot to read in here. But as I said, as we move into the enterprise stuff and what we call the role-based access control, we did a whole intergalactic session on this a number of months ago. And just talking about like how you can set up different roles and things like that. There's a whole bunch of new enterprise level offerings. So if you are an enterprise user on Postman, we also released a ton of stuff. You can also see some of these in the blog posts around the roles. There's another one in here around like managing teams. There's a whole new section now, new enterprise solutions. We've got a whole new enterprise plan called Enterprise Essentials. So yeah, definitely go check out our blog. There's so much, like we could do a whole stream today just on all the new stuff coming out in the release this month. So you definitely want to go check all those out for sure.
There's like 10 blog posts went out this morning.
Just today, yeah.
Yeah.
So the team has been extremely busy trying to put all this stuff together for sure.
Very excited about the tagging, but especially like you said, the performance testing is going to be huge. I've seen that asked a lot in the forums if Postman can do that, and we can now.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty great. You can distribute your API now on the private API network. You can there's a little more consistency checking now around your request response validations and things like that. So yeah, definitely go check out our blog. There's so much going out in the release today. It's going to be great.
It's an exciting day for sure.
Yep, definitely. And yeah, if you're on the enterprise plan, like we basically rebuilt the API governance portion as well with all the spectral rules and things like that. So definitely go check that stuff out. And the enterprise essentials plan now is going to let people kind of like dabble in some of those enterprise features without going like full blown enterprise plan. It's going to be really great. So definitely go check out what the team's been building. And this is going to start rolling out over the next couple of days. So if you log in, if you don't already have access to this stuff, you're going to get access to it like within a couple of days. So we do these sort of rolling upgrades. But if you've got the desktop app, you'll want to watch for updates there. If you're on the web experience, then you get those updates immediately. But it does gradually roll out to everybody.
Cool. Thanks for that, Ian.
Yeah.
Definitely, there was a lot to share there. Yes, then I guess let's get started. So, just to recap for people who may have joined late, what we're going to be doing is building a series of API requests in Postman to get data from a weather API. So in this case, we found the tomorrow weather API, and we'll be able to get things like the temperature, what the weather forecast is, such as rain and stuff, but also like say severe weather alerts, air quality alerts, wildfires, and stuff like that. Ian will be building these requests for me, and then I'll be taking these requests and kind of assembling, say, like the Lego blocks, so to say, in Postman Flows to kind of build an application. But yeah, take it away.
Yep. All right. We also had a question from YouTube asking, is this live session saved on our YouTube channel? Yes. So all of our live streams, we're streaming to Twitch, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and these all get saved on YouTube after the fact. So they do save on LinkedIn and Twitch for a little while, but we put everything up on YouTube, and we'll do chapter notes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
I'll
yeah,
share a link to our playlist.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Cool. Well, let's get started. So the first thing that I did is I made a workspace for Kevin and I to work in. So when you're working in a team, you can build a team-based workspace. I've pasted the link for LinkedIn, and I've given Kevin the link as well if you want to drop that in Twitch and YouTube for everyone. And all I've brought over so far is I brought over the control for this Govy light bar that you saw me use back on May the 4th when I was doing the live stream with Joyce, and we were doing the laser swords because we're not allowed to use the actual Star Wars reference for what the laser swords actually called for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it's the same light bar. And so I've already forked that control over here. And this workspace is also public. So all of you will be able to kind of like look at this workspace and kind of see what's going on with it. Please don't alter things while we're working on it, but it will be public if you want to take a look at it. And you'll be able to like fork what we're doing. The nice thing about flows is I believe you can fork flows now as well. So as Kevin's building this thing out, you'll be able to fork the flow. You can also fork the environments that we're doing, although what we're building in the environments around like building out our APIs and so on, I'm putting all of my values only on the current value side so that none of you can see it. You'll be able to see what the name of these keys are within the environment, but you won't actually get to see my current value. These current values are only stored in my environment. Even Kevin doesn't have access to these. But anything that you set an initial value, especially in a public workspace, will be publicly available to the internet. So be careful that you're not putting actual API keys in here. And then when I run Postman, it's going to use what I have set in current value. And so Kevin has also set this up as well. So I can test, that these things are actually going to work. I can turn the light on and off, and I can change the color and so on. But Kevin is also setting up all these values as well so that Kevin can control my lights when Kevin runs the Postman flows as well, because my Govy light is actually on a public API. So as long as Kevin has my API key and the address of my light bar and so on, then Kevin's going to be able to go in and modify the stuff as well. And that'll come into play as we start to build out the flows. So, all right, well, let's get started, shall we? So the API that Kevin was talking about that I found is from a company called Tomorrow, and there's tomorrow.io, and they've got all kinds of really cool like bars and graphs and all kinds of stuff that you can go through, and you can pinpoint it down to a latitude and longitude location. And you can see things like the air pressure and wind direction and things like that. But they've got a really feature rich API. And if you want, you can go into the search bar in Postman, and you can search for tomorrow.io, and you'll actually see they've got a public collection that you can actually go take a look at. So I'm going to go over to their collection here for just a moment, and they've got a lot of stuff in here, like different alerts and different events and climate normals and all kinds of stuff about weather, like what was the history of the weather, what's the real-time weather. There's a lot of stuff in here. Now, to be careful that I don't overwhelm Kevin with choices, I'm not going to fork over this whole collection and then make Kevin figure out like which endpoint am I going to make him use to put this flow together. So there are a couple things that we want Kevin to put together today. One is going to be what's the current weather, and we'll pull some latitude and longitude values for current weather. And if you want us to check the weather in your area, if you can find us the latitude and longitude and put that in chat, then we'll try to copy some of those maybe. But we'll try
See
to
how
pull up the weather.
accurate.
We'll try to pull up air quality, and then we'll try to pull up like are there any forest fires going on in the areas. So there are only two API endpoints that I actually want to call here. One is for current weather, and another one is going to use this event API, where we're just going to retrieve events. And that API endpoint, we can specify both like forest fires as well as air quality, just to see like is the governing body, you know, in my area, are they sending out an alert to people saying like, hey, there's an air quality alert going on, you should stay indoors, or you know, make sure this or that. And then for the forest fires, it's just going to tell you like a yes, no, is there a forest fire? And then like, what's the range? Like they'll actually give you the latitude, longitude points of drawing out a polygon on a map of like, this is the boundary area of where the forest fire is going on. So I've already pre-selected some latitude and longitude values where I know that some of these things are happening. So we've got an air quality alert going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States, and we've also got a forest fire going on in Oregon that we're going to pull. So, and then the temperature, we can just put any latitude and longitude in there for temperature. So I picked Times Square since Kevin's in New York. I picked a latitude and longitude for Times Square. And then I've got the forest fire in Oregon, and I've got air quality in Minneapolis. So I've already got those latitude longitudes ready to go. It looks like David on LinkedIn has already given us latitude longitude for Israel. So we'll definitely we'll see what this API is capable of. So we'll definitely keep those in mind as we go. So thanks for sending that over, David. So what I'm going to do as a developer, like I could fork over this entire collection, but I think that that might overwhelm Kevin a little bit. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go back to my workspace, and I'm just going to build my own collection for Kevin. And I'm just going to pull in just those two endpoints that Kevin's going to need today. So I'm going to come back over to my collection, and I'm going to make a new collection here. And we're going to call this tomorrow.io API. And I'm going to start adding a couple of requests. So like I said, I really only need two requests here. The first one, we're going to call it get current temperature data. And what I think we'll kind of plan for here, Kevin, is we'll turn my light back here, maybe three different colors. Red if
Okay.
it's hot, green if it's like a moderate kind of range, and you can choose what these ranges are, and blue if it's cold. So red if it's hot, blue if it's cold, and green if it's like a good temperature range.
Makes sense.
So whatever you consider to be a good temperature range. Now, what I looked through in their API is because America is like one of the only countries in the world, it's like one of three countries in the world that uses Fahrenheit. I think their API only deals in Celsius. So if you need help with that conversion, maybe folks in chat can give us some ranges of what you think is kind of a temperate sort of range. For me, kind of the sweet spot of like what would be a green temperature would be between like 10 and 20 Celsius. Anything warmer than 20 might be hot for me. Anything colder than 10 might be cold for me. Although I grew up way in northern Canada, so
Yeah.
I'm used to like really, really negative temperatures. But I think, you know, based on what you experience in New York, Kevin, probably somewhere between 10 and 20 degrees Celsius would be kind of that green range. And let's say anything colder than 10 will be blue, and anything warmer than 20, maybe we'll turn the light red or something like that.
Definitely like a 60s kind of person in Fahrenheit. I don't
Yeah.
know the conversion, but being able to wear like a flannel or something like that.
Yep. Hoodie season. I love my
Yes,
hoodies. Like I'll wear a
exactly.
hoodie all year long if I can. So, all right, cool. Well, let's get started with the APIs. So I'm going to go over here and try to figure out, okay, well, which of these API endpoints do we want to hit? They've got all kinds of like getting started and all kinds of things like, you know, they even get into webhooks and stuff like that for things like when an event actually happens, you can hit a like a webhook and so on. I've already got the event one coming in. This is where we can see, like, we can look at air quality or whether there's fires, and these are only available within the United States. The temperature one should be worldwide though. So we'll go take a look over here at the APIs. I've already gotten a free API key. You can register for free. You can pay for an enterprise one if you want, but I've already grabbed an API key, and I'm going to put that in an environment as we get started here. So we're going to go look at weather, and we're going to look at, let's see.
Maybe real-time weather.
Yep. So they've got layer subscriptions, field availability cases. Looks like we actually might be able to specify Fahrenheit on here.
Oh yeah,
but
metric
we'll
versus imperial.
Yeah. Yep. Metric or imperial. There you go. So you can use Fahrenheit if you want to. So yeah, so we've got a lot of different options that we can pass in. It looks like we can send these in as maybe query parameters. We got weather codes. Okay, so these would be like if you want to convert it back to a list of weather icons. So if you're building like a mobile app, for example, and you get a weather code of 1,000, that means sunny, and so then you can call back and like go grab that asset, for example, to show like a sunny kind of icon or something like that. Cool. Well, let's go figure out how to actually call just their regular weather API. So they've got a whole section here just called recipes. And you can, let's see, that's going to pull up historical data, build your own weather app with one call. Hey, they've got a run and Postman button.
Postman.
That's fantastic. So that's actually going to take you immediately over to their collection and try to fork it into your own workspace. So yeah, you can go check out tomorrow.io, and you've got all these run and Postman buttons. You can get started right away. Cool. Let's see, national trends. I just want to get like current weather. So you can set up an alert. I just want just regular old weather here. So let's see. How are we going to get started on this one? So pull up weather data.
Oh, back on the tab you were just on, actually. I thought I saw something. See forecast, or sorry, no, under reference. See weather
there
forecast,
it is. Weather forecast.
Get, real-time weather, get.
There we go. Yeah. So hey, look at this. In the documentation, we've got a curl command. And what I love about Postman is we can actually grab this curl command. Like we can use try it here. They're actually using like a public API key that they kind of allow everybody to use. So you can hit that try it button and it'll give you some information. What I love about Postman though is I can actually grab this curl command and I can come back over to Postman and I can paste that curl command in here. And Postman just automatically split that out into what our whole thing actually needs to be. So we've got a location of New York. Now the location, we can also put in a latitude and longitude, or if they can recognize the name of the location, then we can put that in there. And then this is the API key that they're using. I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to use their public API key because they do rate limiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build in my own variable here called API key. So I'm going to go build an environment for this, and I'm just going to copy in my my API key. So I'm going to go build a new environment over here, and I'm going to call this tomorrow.io API, and I'm going to call this API underscore key. I'm going to set it to secret, and again, I'm only going to set my current value here. Now, I've already given this value to Kevin as well, so Kevin can use my API key. I think, Kevin, you've also got an API key. So if we do get rate limited, Kevin can just set his own key, or he can switch over to using my key or something like that if we hit a rate limit today. But I don't anticipate that we will. So by pasting in that curl command, now we're ready to go. Now, if you can discern the color red, if I hover over this, it says it's unresolved because I've got to actually go save my environment work. And then over here, I need to go pick my environment. So I'm going to go pick my tomorrow API. And now that color of, it shifted over here. And now I can try to send this over. And there's our temperature in New York. So it looks like we had the ability to change over to be imperial. So let's go see if we can figure that out. So they're also giving us a couple of different ways of grabbing a location. So again, we can do latitude, longitude, We can give it the name of the city. It'll try to like do its best match on that. If we're in the United States, we can give it a zip code. We can give it a UK postal code or Canadian postal code as well. But let's try out that latitude and longitude that David posted for us in chat. So let me go grab that value here, and we'll go give that a try. So I think that this was over in Israel. So let's try 310461 north and 348516 east. So if it's an east value, then this is going to be positive. We're in America, so if we want to go west of London, then this longitude value would be negative. But let's go see what the temperature is over in Israel right now. So cloud base, cloud ceiling are all null. We got a dew point in here. We've got an apparent temperature of 25 Celsius. So that's getting pretty warm over there in Israel. So I'd definitely be turning that light red for me. We got a little bit of wind. We got wind direction, a little bit of a wind gust. Cool. All right. And then it looks like it's breaking it down like hour by hour. So it looks like this is a forecast. So it's predicting, based on the time, what time it thinks the temperature is going to be at that time. So it looks like it's down to the minute. So it's got minutely in here, which is kind of interesting. And then there's also an hourly block. So you can break it down by hour. And then there's a daily block as well. So you can see like days in advance, like what's the average temperature, do we think it's going to be for the day? Or there might be like a high and a low value. No ice accumulation at all when it's 25 degrees Celsius. Imagine that. So now I've got kind of this initial building block, but Kevin is still going to have to be able to interpret these values when he starts pulling this into flows. But let's say, just for the ease of Kevin, let's see if we can limit this to just the daily value. Let's see if we can limit it to a single value. So Kevin only gets like one daily value that he's got to try to parse out of here. So let's go see if we can find some other query parameters here to limit what we're looking for here. So it looks like time steps, we can give it just daily. We can say 1 day. So hopefully that'll give us that. And then we can give it units, which we can do imperial. So it looks like we've got some query parameters here that we can pull in. So we've got time steps. I'm going to set it to 1 day. So we've got time steps, and I'm going to set this to a value of 1 day. And then the other one was units, and I'm going to set that to imperial. So we've got units, and we'll set this to imperial.
It'll save me some time trying to figure out what's like the conversion and all that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is something that's really common with REST APIs, is you end up overfetching that data. Like the default on this is to send you like every minute for several hours, like 24 hours worth of data, as well as daily data for like some range of number of days, like 7 days or 10 days. And you're getting all of this data and you're sending all this data over the internet, when I just want like, what's the weather today? Like, that's all I care about. Like, I didn't need all of this other information, but I've got to go fetch all that and then try to wade through all this data. And this is really common with REST APIs, is we either overfetch or we underfetch. That's the nice thing about like GraphQL, for example. GraphQL, you can say, these are the exact fields that I want back. Anyway, we've been able to kind of narrow this down. And it looks like we've got a single daily value. We've got cloud and so on, evaporation, freezing rain intensity. Yeah, that's all going to be 0 when it's warm outside. We've got humidity. And again, this is over in Israel right now from David's latitude and longitude. Got air pressure, rain, no sleet going on, no snow going on. We've got sunrise and sunset, which is kind of cool. And here are your temperature values in Fahrenheit. So we've got a minimum, a maximum, and an average value. So you'll have a couple of things to kind of pick from here. So we've got apparent values, and then we've got like these values here, which are maybe a little more, closer to the actual things. Now, one thing I didn't see in here was like, I don't think I saw like air quality or anything in here. It's like a cloud cover, dew point, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think Kevin, to get started, will probably just use these temperature values here. And I would say, just for simplicity, maybe just make note of this field here. We want the temperature average, and then we'll just turn the light on or off based on that average.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So we've got that endpoint ready to go, and we know that that's going to work. And I bet if I come over here and I do like Denver, Colorado, let's see if it'll tell us the weather over here in Denver. No, didn't like
Didn't like
sending.
that comma, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay, but it did find Denver just by itself. Let's see what the temperature is over here. 65. Yep. 57 to 72. That sounds about right for Denver right now. Cool. So I'm pretty confident that this one's going to work kind of as is. We can always pass this value in as a parameter, maybe, or if Kevin wants to, we'll give kind of the choice to Kevin once we get to this part of whether we're just going to hard code this in the request or if you want to pass this in as a parameter or something like that. Cool. So we've got that one. The other one that we wanted to do was the events. So they've got this event API as well that'll tell us air quality events and forest fire events as well. We figured that one would be pretty timely with what's been going on, with like forest fires in Canada and like drifting all this smoke around the world. I was showing Kevin, like, here's the map I was using to find a forest fire. And then one of the other ones I found was like a fire and smoke map. And just you see all
Everywhere.
this smoke like drifting. It's starting to drift over the Atlantic Ocean now because of wind current patterns and whatever. Like the smoke from the Canadian wildfires are now all over the Atlantic and going to hit the UK probably in the next couple of days. So, yeah, it's pretty wild just to see like how the air currents move. Like you kind of see this sort of wave that's happening, kind of coming in here and just kind of waving across like in these air currents and these jet streams and so on. It's pretty interesting to see. So here's the fire in Oregon that we're going to kind of zoom in on. And then we can also see that there's some air quality going on over here in Minneapolis as well. So we're going to go grab this event API. This will be the next one that I'm going to implement for Kevin to use. And we can look at severity levels. We can look at urgency levels. This is some of what's going to come back as far as like the time of the event and the updated information about it, how urgent it is. And we'll be able to pass a value to this API saying, I want both forest fire events and air quality events. And we can make a single call out of that. And what I'm thinking we'll do for this one, Kevin, is if you get any data back, that means there's a forest fire or there's an air quality event. And so if we have time, we can get into like, if there are a lot of, air quality events, then we could turn up the brightness or something on my light, or we can just leave the brightness as is and just change the color. And so we've got the temperature colors. We've got red, green, and blue for the temperature. And then I'm thinking with the air quality scale, we saw these different colors happening. It went from like yellow or green to yellow to orange to red to purple to like burgundy or something, which means like just don't even go outside kind of thing. So what I'm thinking is if there's an air quality event, we'll just turn it purple. And if there's a forest fire, we'll turn it yellow. Just so we've got some different colors to happen on the light back here that hopefully people can kind of see and discern a little bit as we work through this. So we'll have red, green, and blue for the temperature, and then we'll have purple for air quality, and we'll use yellow for whether there's a fire or something like that. All right, so let's go implement this event API and let's go see what's happening in here. So, so we've got the event, and let's see if there's that page help. Yeah, kind of. So retrieve events. So we've got kind of a history. We can see like how many days. This is just, kind of showing us historically. But again, we got a curl command in here that we can go grab. And we could just drop this straight into Postman. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click on the 3 dots for that collection. I'm going to add a request. And we're going to call this like just events, like just get fire and air events. And I can paste that curl command in here. And then Postman goes through and it kind of pulls everything out. I'm going to put in my own API key here so that we're not using their public API and get rate limited. But we're going to have to tell like what kind of events do we want to get. We also need that location. And then we need to tell it what kind of events that we want to get. So if we come down here, we've got the location. This one is required. And we also have insights, which is, what kind of insights do we want to get? And this is where we can say I want like fires or air quality and things like that. So let's back up here a little bit and let's see if we can find out what those values actually are. So we've got, so it's triggers, it looks like. Well, that's what's coming back in the request. So let's see, how do we know what those values actually are? So we got the location API. Somewhere in here, I actually saw what the list of things were. There was like fires and things like that, but we actually passed this in. Just trying to remember what the call actually was, or what the, I think it's, I think it was called insights. So there's like insight rules. But if I skip ahead here, yeah, it's just called insights. So yeah, I think we'll just set it to air and fires. We'll see if that'll work for us. So we'll call this insights, air, and in their API, so let's see. So they've got a way to add a string in here for insights. So we'll add a string for air quality. And oops, did that add? Yeah, that added that in. And then we'll add another one for fires. And if we come back over here and we look at what's happening in their query, it looks like they're actually repeating that query parameter over and over again for each of the different insights that we want. So instead of being a comma delimited list, which I would typically want to do as a developer, I would do like air, comma, fires. It looks like we actually have to pass this a second time. And I'll just set it to, I think it's just fire. We'll see. No, let's try fires plural. Nope, invalid. Oh, because I didn't give it a location. So I'll just do Denver. Nope. All right, so the location should be a location ID or a latitude and longitude value. Okay, so in this case, I've already got some latitude and longitudes picked out. So I'm just going to do Times Square latitude, longitude. And this is going to come from, it should have come from the, oh, yeah, I need to go add those in my collection. So I'm going to go add those in a collection up here. So I'm going to do like Times Square latitude and longitude. And we're going to do where I know there's a fire, latitude and longitude. And I'm going to do a known air quality, latitude and longitude as well. So I've already got these kind of, just for the sake of time, I've already fetched these latitude and longitude values. So we'll go grab these values. So Times Square is at this latitude and longitude. The fire that we're going to go look up in Oregon is at this latitude and longitude. And the air quality event that's happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is going to be at this latitude and longitude. So let me go save all of these. We'll go save all of this stuff here. So now we've got Times Square as a latitude and longitude, and we send that over and we have no events. So Kevin, I think if we get no events at all, we'll just turn the light green because that means good. Okay. And if we get events, then we'll turn it purple if there's a fire. We'll turn it yellow, purple if there's an air quality event, and we'll turn it yellow if there's a fire. So if I come over here and I change this to fire latitude and longitude, we know that there's a forest fire going on, or there should have been a forest fire going on. It's not finding it for me now. Uh-oh. I might have to go find a new latitude and longitude. Maybe they contained it enough that there's not an event anymore. So we'll go find a new latitude and longitude for a fire here in a moment. But let's go see if that air quality is still happening in Minneapolis. Yeah, that one's still going on. So we'll say that if there's any data at all for an air quality event, then we'll turn that thing purple.
Could it be because it's fire instead of fires?
Maybe. Yeah, let's try that.
Nope. You were right.
I think it is plural. Yep. Okay. So I just need to go find a new latitude and longitude of where there's a current fire. So, so Kevin, I think you've got everything you need to get started here. So we've got these endpoints that you can go fetch. I'll double check this fire one while you get started on flows, and I'll just update that collection with a good fire latitude and longitude while we're getting started here. So what I'll do is I'll refresh this map and I'll find a new forest fire that's going on. And I'll try to pinpoint like a latitude and longitude for that. So let's see. Looks like we've got. Let's see. So this is a 2,000 acre fire. Updated 12 minutes ago. So this one's actively going on right now. So this is near Sparta. This is Sparta, Missouri. Okay. So let's go find a latitude and longitude of Sparta, Missouri. So here's our latitude and longitude. And again, because we're west of the international date line, or not the international date line of zero, basically, then we have to make this one. We have to make this one negative. So let's go in and we'll update our collection here. So our fire latitude and longitude, we don't need the degrees north, and this value will be negative because we're west. And we'll go set that over here. We'll save that, and then we'll come back in here and we'll see if we can get a fire alert. Nope, no fire event either. So Kevin, why don't you get started, and I'll go find one that is going to give us a fire event, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Let's switch over to my screen. Yeah, so let's dive into things real quick. First, I can see I have my environment selected. This has all the URLs, API keys, and stuff that I would need. So I'm looking to change Ian's lights. I think a good start would be to turn them off and see if this is working. So that was a success. I'm going to switch to the stream. His lights are off. That worked. I'll turn these back on. So I know I have these two endpoints that I can work with, but setting the color is another one. So if we look at the body, I can see name is color, value is set color. So I can see here in the pre-request scripts, setting color, we have an RGB value. So there's red, blue, green, yellow, orange, and purple. So we should be able to do this somehow. First, let's turn them back on and try to figure out set color. This is.
Can you zoom in a little bit on that, Kevin?
Is this better?
Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, Arlemy was asking chat if you could zoom in a bit.
Gotcha. All right. So this is what's controlling the setting of the weather, but I'm trying to see how I actually pass that in.
So the way that I built this out is going to make it easy for you to do in flows. You won't be able to call the endpoint and set the color. You'll need to do it in flows. So flows is going to look for a variable to be set called set color, and you'll just set that to a string. And what this code is doing in the pre-request script here is it's going to parse out the string that you pass, try to find a match. And I think it defaults to orange or something. It defaults to Postman orange if you don't specify something. So that's what line 5 is doing. So it's gonna default to orange, but if it finds a string match, like an exact string match, so not like capital R red, but like all lowercase red, it'll turn the color red back here. Hopefully everyone's going to be able to discern the color. There's not a lot of difference on this light, unfortunately, between red and orange, but going between like red, blue, green, purple, yellow, you should see it, as well as reflecting kind of on the side of the wall here. You should see the color show up a little bit better. So
yeah, that should help. Okay, so then let's dive in with flows. If you're not seeing this button here on the side, you can select this configure workspace sidebar button and then toggle it on for your workspace. So once we go into here, we're going to do create flow, and I'm going to name it IoT stream flow. All right. Now we have our start block. This is where all of like the execution kind of takes place. When we run it, it's going to run whatever's connected to it. So let's send a request. And we can see that this attaches it to the start block. So when we hit run, this will be triggered. Since we saw how easy it is to turn on and off the lights, let's just do that as a quick one. So right now they should be on. When I hit start, it will turn that off. You can see there's variables for the URL and stuff. This is being grabbed from my environment. So when I run it, actually, let's also display this. So when you drag this out, we can see the blocks that are available. I'm looking to output it and see what kind of data is returned. I'll do that for both of these. So let's run. Doesn't look like this is connected to the environment. Oh, so here there's
Yeah,
the
you got to
add
pick the environment
environment.
and the block. Yeah.
There we go.
So the reason that we do this is because in flows you can actually pull in multiple collections, where typically when you're working in a single collection with all your requests, you really only get to pick one environment as you're running the individual requests. But in flows, because each of these blocks can come from different collections, we allow you to pick different environments, because you might have one environment for your weather, one environment for your lights, one environment for something else. You might have like development modes, you might have staging or production modes. And so each of these blocks can also have its own environment, which is super, super handy. I love that the team did that.
Yeah, I could see how that's helpful. Or you have a flow for, say, like your testing environment versus your production environment and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So here we'll select add environment, and I'm gonna select my environment where I know we have the values defined.
Okay.
Um, and then we should run this, and we can see
All
we
right.
got a
Light just
success.
turned off back here. So, yep.
There we go. Okay,
All
so
right.
this is
Yay.
working.
Kevin did a thing.
I did a thing.
And I promise I'm
Um,
not touching any buttons when Kevin's doing this.
yeah,
So
hands up. Yeah.
it's all Kevin. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's switch gears and start working with the weather here. So I want to get the current temperature data and see how can let's run it and see what happens. So this looks like it worked.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's looking at Denver, Colorado.
Right, because we hard
How?
coded that in the
Yeah.
request. So if you want to post, or if you want to send through a variable, then I'll need to set that up in a pre-request script, which I'm happy to do. Uh, you'll just have to tell me what you want to call that variable, and then figure out how you want to get that variable value into the request. So this is where like the team has to communicate a little bit, because if Kevin doesn't understand the programming of what's needed here, and Kevin just wants to use these visual blocks, Kevin say like, I just want to put in like location or something, and then I can figure out, okay, well, let's grab that value and we'll post that in. And that way Kevin can just set a variable here in flows, and I can take care of the programming side of it. So so Kevin, what would you like to call that variable for that value?
Let's do, keeping with the theme of latitude and longitude. I know that we can do, say, like zip code and stuff. Let's call this something like location lat long.
Or do you just want to call it location? Because we could pass in a city, and then that'll give you the choice of whether you want to put in a lat long or put in the name of a city. We'll just keep it
Okay.
location, since that's the name of the parameter.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll work.
Okay. All right. So let's go back over to what I'm doing here, and I'll
So
go figure out how we're going to pull that in as a parameter. So I'm going to pull
switch
that
back.
in. Yeah. So all I'm doing in my request right here is I'm going to pull in a value here called location, which is going to be empty to start out with. But if we go back over to flows, and the nice thing about working collaboratively in a workspace like this is I can see everything that Kevin just built. And if I come over to this block now and I refresh this, notice it's now giving us that variable called location. So all I did in my collection was I went over to my collection and I just changed this to be a variable name. I didn't have to do anything else. I just said, hey, this is going to come in from here. I can also make this, and we'll just call it like units or something like that. And I save that. When I come back over to flows, oops, come back over to flows, click on the flow, and I refresh over here, there's our units block. So now Kevin's going to have the opportunity, and he can just pass those values in. So if you want to pass in a string value here for, New York, or if anybody else wants to give us a location in chat, then Kevin can try to post that in. We'll see if it can pull up the weather. So Kevin, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay. Right. So like Ian said, now this is refreshed on my side, so I can see that I can provide units and also a location. Um, let's add a string, and we'll call this, uh, I'll use my old zip, or actually, I have your Times Square lat long, so we'll enter that. Oops. And then also units, I'm gonna stick with another string, and I'm gonna do imperial because that's what I'm used to.
Okay.
um, it looks like we got a success, so we can see that lat long with daily timeline. Um, yeah, and that seems about right. It's average amount of humidity, no rain, that kind of stuff. But we were looking for, where am I seeing it? The temperature.
Yep.
Temperature
There it is.
average and temperature max. Cool. So now that we have this data, the next step is, let's do something cool actually with it first. So we can see we're getting this output. I'm gonna take this output and I want to get, I'd like to display what the current temperature average is. So this should be, I believe it's called a lookup, or what is it called again? Might be a record. Let's try a record.
Okay.
That's not the record, is it? Give me 1 second. I have this somewhere. I'm gonna refer to my notes. Oh, it is just called an output. So we want to get a certain piece. Um, what is this called again? Maybe I have to pull it from here. What I'm trying to do is get the specific value from the JSON object. And because I'm pulling it from the output, that may not work. So I think this froze. I'm gonna refresh my tab. Maybe we'll duplicate it. Seem to be having some internet issues.
Oh. I mean, your audio and video is coming through okay.
Yeah,
Are you
I
just
think
disconnected?
it might be my browser. It's being a little goofy. Give me one
Okay.
second. I'm gonna relaunch that.
Okay.
Uh, so what I'm trying to do is doing some weird stuff. Um, is to kind of display what that value is, so we can see it like at a glance. Um, that'll kind of help us moving from there. I see in the chat people suggesting things. Log is, that's an option we could do. Log would send it to the console, and then we could see that there. But what I'm looking to do is display it visually. I think this is the right tab. We're back. I'm trying to display it visually as like a block. So I think we can do uh, outputs named data, a list of data, select data from the input using a path. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the path in the JSON to output. So let's organize this a little bit better here. We don't want to actually make spaghetti. This will be the output just to debug and see what we're getting. Here's where I'll break out the path. And let me know like if this is too small. I could try to zoom in a little bit more. So the
That's good so
path we're
far.
looking for, I've got my environment. So let's run this again so I can see what we're looking for. We've got the body, then timelines, daily, 0 values, and then that. So body.timelines.daily. We'll see what that looks like. Oh, actually, when we click on this, we could see all of that there. So we're going to scroll through values. Makes it a lot easier. um, And we're gonna look for temperature average. Yeah, temperature average. Or do we want apparent? Because apparent is like the feels like. Let's
Let's do the actual. Let's do the actual because feels like is pretty subjective. Like you might think it
yeah.
feels cold. I might think it doesn't. Right.
Yeah.
So let's go
Okay.
with the actual temperature.
We'll go with the actual temperature. And now we can see this filled it out. We could have also typed this out, but going through that tree that way is a lot easier.
Okay.
So now this kind of narrowed down what that output is, and we're going to output it again. So this is here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and run it again.
And I did find another fire event happening down in Arizona, I believe. So we're good to go on the fire event now.
Okay. It looks like we hit the limit. So I'm going to,
Oh, really?
yeah, I'm going to swap out the API key real quick.
Well, actually, before you do that, can we go look at the console? Because in their documentation, so if you click on console down the bottom left corner, we should see a header from them telling us what that rate limit is. Oh, they didn't do it. Their documentation said that they would send a header letting you know what the rate limit was.
Okay.
But
So,
we did get a 429. So the 429 status code is the rate limit. So yeah, we're gonna have to rotate the API key and let the other one cool down for a moment.
okay.
It's
So I
interesting
have
because
an
I
idea
was
of,
doing a ton of this testing last night and I didn't hit a
yeah,
rate limit at all. So
this is what happened to me where I started to get in the flow and then, yeah. So I'm going to swap this key out really quick. I'm going to edit it and then not show anyone that key. I'm going to save it. So we're using current value just so that
Mhm.
it's only stored locally and no one else on my team would be able to see this. And then we'll switch back and run this. And we got success. So it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Um, but to avoid getting rate limited again, I'm going to do a little trick and let me do this actually with a collection really quick because it'll be easier for me to copy it. Um, Let's add this as another. I'm going to grab the latitude and longitude that I'm using in the flow. So this will kind of help you if you have to do like a bunch of requests to test something and you don't want to actually hit the API. Um, I saved that there. So now when I go back to collections, I think my tab just froze again. Uh,
We do have a big release going out today, so it could be,
yeah.
the servers are catching up on that stuff.
Let me fix this for a moment.
Okay.
This is basically gonna let me mock that data that we got in that first response, so I don't have to keep hitting the endpoint every time I want to change something in the flow.
Okay.
Just got it back. Here we go. So under collections, now that I have this location value, this should scoop it up. I'm gonna reselect it. Um, Units. We need units. That's right. Um, put that in there. Units, and then we did imperial. Let's see, maybe clicking things won't instead of trying to hotkey it. So now these are working. When I send it, I can see the body is here. Gonna drag that up. So I'm gonna actually just copy this entire thing, the whole thing. Typically, when you're making a mock in Postman, you would save this as an example and then create a mock server. But with flows, as this loads, we can change the start block and configure it to return data when you hit run. So this is executing the workflow to send the request. I could bypass this by telling it what data I want it to send.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm going to temporarily, until we're ready to mess around with this some more, just bypass it. So I'm going to delete all of these and then remember to connect them again later. Hold
Okay.
on. way
Oh, that's
harder to
pretty cool.
work with this zoomed in so much. I'll nudge this off to the side.
I'm
And
definitely spoiled with the big giant monitor in front of me. You know, you
yes,
can pan things around quite a lot.
I don't usually work this zoomed in. So now when I run it, we can see this isn't running anything. It shouldn't be running anything. And I can get all of that data. So now we want to, I might have to clear this. That didn't seem to actually work this time. I'm going to make a copy of it so that we can save it for later. Delete that.
I wonder if it
Actually,
doesn't see body as part of the path.
that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to clear that. Yeah, so it doesn't seem to be
Okay.
seeing body. So I'll kind of scroll through this again, zoom in a little bit. It was pretty low down in here. We're gonna go to. Did I pass it?
Yeah, because I think you grabbed like all of the data instead of the
Yeah,
limited, like just grab me 1 day worth of data. So it looks like you've got a bunch of them in there. Right about there. Coming up on it.
it's got a
There you are.
temperature. Yeah, T. There we go. And then we're gonna output this again. So now we're seeing what we were looking for.
Cool.
68 degrees hasn't
That's pretty
changed,
cool.
I think, at all.
I
But
think
yeah,
I think
this.
one piece of feedback for the flows team would be instead of having to paste that JSON data into the flows, is if we've got a saved example in our collection, like let us pick from the saved example to like pull in. That would be kind of neat.
I think that would help a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's
this will
really neat.
save some
So
time.
instead of it's kind of like spinning up a mock server based on those saved examples, but in this case, you're actually giving flows the JSON that you wanted to use and kind of work through from there. That's pretty neat.
And I mean, doing it this way is a little bit more advanced, where you have to actually run the request of the note, copy and paste it in there so that you get that
Right.
data, and then you have to change what request you're running. So being able to do that as like an example would kind of help fit this use case where the seasoned developer knows a little bit more about what they're doing and they save that proper example for then the end user to use. So yeah, now we're getting this data here. We want to change Ian's light. So I'm trying to think how we're going to step through this. We know we have this number. So we're going to want to change based on this number the color to red if it's considered too hot, which maybe I would say anything over 80 degrees Fahrenheit would be red. Anything
Okay.
between 60 and 79 or something like that, we would do
We'll say
as
green for
green.
good or
Yes.
something. Yeah.
And then anything below 60, like 50s and stuff, is where it starts to get a little bit cold. I kind of like, 50s. That's good, some good like hoodie weather and stuff. But for the rest of the audience, yeah. All
Sounds
right.
good.
So
So
let's
so what
go ahead.
kind of control are you going to need here to say, based on that temperature, the temperature range, like you do a thing, because we're going to have like a bunch of sort of branching happening here. So what kind of, like, just in everyday language, because we're kind of working on a presumption that you're not a programmer.
Yeah.
What sort of control would you look for to make this happen?
So thinking before we even touch flows, we would want to change based on those different temperatures. If it's this temperature, we're going to do this. If it's this temperature, we'll do that.
Mhm,
So with my programming background, I would know that would mean something like a switch statement. We don't
mhm.
actually have switch statements
I
yet,
wish we did.
but we do. That would be so nice to have. We do have if. So we'll have to do some nested ifs, which isn't really a great thing typically, but that'll work. So back to that. Yeah, we're thinking the different temperatures. If it's over 80, we're gonna make it do that. If then, that kind of thing. So dragging off of our data that we have here, um, we can look through the blocks that we have. I can see that I can send a request. I can see that if, so that would stand out um, immediately. There's also looping things we can do. We can output it like we did there, that kind of stuff. So let's start with an if block, and you can also search this with this, um, find exactly what you're looking for. So this is going to pass that data into here, and then we can see visually if whatever our condition is true, this one will execute. If it's false, this one will execute. So we would do something like greater than 80, we're going to change the lights. If it's not, we're going to run another if. So let's start by connecting also this data and making sure I'm doing this right. So we're going to call this temperature or temp. Then we can try the Flows query language. There's this tool where you can describe what you want to do in English. You don't really have to know code or SQL or anything like that. So I want to do if temp is greater than 80. I'll generate that. I think actually we just want to do temp is greater than 80. We'll change this.
And then we'll probably need a latitude and longitude to test this with. So if anybody in chat, let's see, what is 80 Fahrenheit in Celsius is going to be anything warmer than about 26 or 27 degrees Celsius. So if your temperature is warmer than 27 Celsius, can you put in your city name in chat for us so we can actually test that this is going to go higher? Because where Kevin lives and where I live, it's not going to get warmer than 80 degrees. So
one thing we could actually do, since we're mocking it, is go into this data directly
put
and
in your own
it.
value.
So
yeah, you can do that too.
We could make this say like 90 right now and save that. I feel like my tab just crashed because it's stuck with the I. All right, one more time. Let's refresh this. But yeah, so that's one of the other benefits of mocking things this way, is being able to change that data on the fly instead of having to hunt for where there might be a wildfire or where the temperature reaches whatever we're looking for. Makes it a little simpler. So
we've had a couple of folks say that the Delhi and Marseille in France are above 27 Celsius. So we could try it with a location if we actually want to try the real API.
That'll be good when we do the API request again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to trying to think how we can. I want to, when this runs, I want to make sure that we're seeing true in this case. So let's just output. Similar to before, this is how we'll debug.
Can we see your screen again?
I didn't turn that on. You're right. There we go. All right. So right where we were before, we've got this if statement. We're looking at the temperature. If the temperature is over 80, which we saw before was 60, but we just changed it to like 90, it's going to run true. So we'll see the output there. I'll also do an output here just for debugging purposes, and we will run this.
All right, so it came back
false.
So it
didn't look like it's saved. Let's do that real quick again and not crash. We'll hit this gear icon again and scroll all the way down.
So so there were a couple of different, I think because you were getting multiple blocks, I wonder if it didn't change the right one or something like that.
Well, this is coming from the start block. I think it's just my browser keeps dying when I try to save things.
Gotcha. Okay.
It could be because of the length of this. Could you actually go in and try to change that for me and see if it doesn't crash for you?
Yeah.
But yeah, someone in chat, Shaley, just had this comment: can we remove unnecessary data?
Absolutely,
that would also work, and that might help me not crash.
Yeah,
but
I'll take out some of the data, so we've got just the temperature.
Okay.
And we'll do just a single temperature value in here. It's also hanging for me, so it's definitely unfortunately on the Postman side. So yeah, we've got a major release. So if you missed the first couple of minutes of the stream today, we've got a major release coming out today, and it's like there's a lot of stuff in it. So the servers are like under a lot of pressure right now to get some stuff going. Yeah, it hung on my side as well, even just trying to clean that up. So
Okay.
what we might need to do is if you can just pull that maybe into a text editor and just trim it down to just the temperature and then like paste the whole thing in all in one shot, as opposed to trying to edit what's there. I wonder if that
Yeah,
might
let's do that again real quick.
be a little
So
easier.
I'm going to select the right environment and I'm going to get the temperature data. I'll run this again. I'm going to copy this into Notepad. So you won't be able to see this, but I'm going to trim it really quick.
Yeah, and just keep that temperature average or whatever. So that's
Yeah,
really the only
temperature
piece
average
that
is,
we need.
yeah.
It would be
Okay.
nice if there was a way to filter that. Again, with REST APIs, we end up overfetching like all of this data. Like it would be nice to go in and say like all I want is the average temperature. I don't want all of this other stuff. It would be interesting to see if we could filter that down. While Kevin's doing that, I'm actually going to go through the API and see whether there's a way that we can filter that. Because there's a way that we could say we only want like 1 day worth of data, but it would be nice if we could narrow that down and say these are only the fields that we actually want. So I'm not seeing any other parameters to allow us to do that. It looks like we can only set the timestamp or the time step of like hourly, daily, 1 day, and then the units. It doesn't look like it'll allow us to filter beyond that. There's a real-time weather, but again, it's just location and units. It doesn't look like there's a way to say like I only want just the temperature. Like don't give me cloud coverage and things like that. It doesn't look like it gives us that ability in this API. Some APIs do, some don't. This one doesn't apparently do that for us. Yeah, my whole Postman tab is completely locked up right now.
I'm going to try the app. I think the app might run a little better because this is what I was, well, the release was today, but it ran a little better for me yesterday. Um, but I did manage to pare that down. It's just now the tricky process of saving it. So I'm gonna open it, really quickly copy paste.
So while Kevin's doing that, Arlemy also asked in chat, can part of the flow convert the temperature in normal units? Like, can you convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius? I imagine you could. I'm pretty sure in the eval block, you could give it a math operation and do like the, I forget what the actual formula is, but there should be a way to use the eval block to do that math conversion and then output from that into something else.
I think what we'll do actually is instead of just trying to change that at the moment, um, I'm gonna try to switch my tab and talk at the same time.
You want to just try and hit the real API maybe?
I'm just gonna hit the real API once, and then we'll try to think our way through it without having to resend it and get rate limited again.
Yeah. All right. All right. I just got
Okay.
mine reloaded now. So,
Okay.
and yeah, if we get rate limited, then maybe we could rotate back to my API key because my API key is probably cooled down from when you were rate limited on that one.
Probably. I think because it's usually like a certain amount every hour, and I think we
Mhm.
passed the hour, so we'll
Yeah.
see. Okay. We're back. So we're gonna undo this mess. Gonna drag this request back in, and I'm gonna reconnect the start where everything starts to the send, and then the success and the failure into this debug block. We're also going to drag that into this one. This one has the body,
Mhm.
so this is the correct path. I'm gonna delete that guy. Get that back in the output, get that back in here and into the data. Now we'll zoom out again and we'll run this once
So we're
we're all
we're
good.
calling the request. We're gonna output kind of what we're seeing, so we can kind of filter through for debugging, and then it's gonna go through the if else block, and it'll either show up in true or false based on whether the temperature is over 80 Fahrenheit.
Yes.
Okay.
So hopefully we see false here.
All right. Drum roll.
Drum roll.
Hey, we got false.
We
All
got
right.
false. So now let's break this out into. I'm gonna keep these debug things here. Might get a little messy, but I'm gonna try to organize things the best I can. One cool feature with Flows is this mini map where you can kind of drag around your
Oh,
whole
that's new.
workspace and
I haven't seen
you can
that mini
actually
map
see
before.
visually where the start block is. It's in orange where you have different outputs and stuff like that. I
Very
love that
cool.
it's actually called a mini map. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So if it's false, this means if the temperature is less than 80, we have two different conditionals here. If it's going to be cold, which is less than, say, I think we said 60,
Mhm.
or the default will be between 60 and 80, um,
Mhm.
where we would want to change the light to green. So we'll
Okay.
break this
So we
out
need another if
into
else.
another if. Yes. We'll type if
So at this
here.
point, we already know it's less than 80. So now we could just do if it's greater than 60, then we know we're already in that range.
And one cool thing is we can also add text to the screen. So this will help us kind of add comments to our code, so to say. So if temp is less than 80, and you can also customize, I believe, like forget where to do this, but you can change like oh, there we go. Double clicking. If
Yep.
it's a header, I think you could change the color and stuff like that too. So it's very customizable. You can really get organized with this. Um, so we're looking again at temp. If temp is, we'll call it less than 60. So this is basically, it's going to narrow down the range to below 80 and then or sorry, greater than 80. So when we get to this block, it's less than 80. So now we're going to
Mhm.
split it into is it less than 60? If it
Okay.
is, we're going to change it to blue
Blue.
because
Yep.
we know that's cold. If it's false, then we can assume since it's not greater than 80 and it's not less than 60, that's going to be green.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good. Well, let's drop that
so,
request in and we'll get that
so
going.
let's go through here again. We can see send a request.
Mhm.
I'm going to look for the device control and we'll set the color. And then these are being grabbed from the environment that I define here. And we can set the color. So
Yep.
now looking, is there a way to jump to the requests with that? There we go. That's
Yep.
perfect. We're looking at this again. So these are the colors that we have available. We remember blue, green, and red. We'll switch back to our flow. And I'm going to add a data block string. So in this case, when it's false, if it's not less than 60, this is what we're going to want to change it to green.
Can you move that up just a little
Data.
bit? Our face to cover. There we go.
Yeah, let's switch the view a little bit so it's easier to see. When I was adding the text block, that's this one here too, and the mini map. Just in case that was blocked, I feel like it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're adding set color to green here because we know in this case it's between 60 and 80. If
Okay.
it's true, we're going to send another request. We're going to define that same request. We could actually copy this, but I'll just do it this way. Device control set color, and it assumed the same environment, and I'm going to set the color um, as a string to, so this would be less than 60. This would be
Yep.
cold. We're going to call that blue.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do more mess real quick just to debug everything. I'm going to connect all of our outputs and inputs. There we go. Just to
Cool.
make sure this is doing something. All right.
All right,
I
let's
think
try it.
your lights are off, right? I have to turn them on.
It's no, that's the nice thing about the Govy is when you set the color, it'll say, "Oh, it's already off." So let me turn it
Yeah.
on and set the color. It should turn it on at the same time.
Okay. Keep an eye on Ian. We're gonna run this.
Should
Given
see
that
the
it's 67, we should be. We're
should turn green.
expecting green. Running. We got
Hey,
those
there we go, and
numbers.
it's green.
There
We
we
got a green
go.
light back here.
We got green. So that much is working. Now we need a location where it's cold, which we could honestly just change here
Yep.
technically, just to debug it. So I'm gonna do is less than 80 here as well. We know that this would run true. We could see that it even had switched. So we'll rerun this really quick.
Okay. Or if you can put
That's
in a new
executed.
location name, put in a city called Yellowknife.
Yellowknife. Let's try that. I'm gonna undo that back to 60. So back under location, New York. That's the lat long. We're gonna do. You said Yellowknife.
Yeah, all one word. It's up in northern Canada. It's about 58 Fahrenheit there right now.
Yellowknife. So that's gonna be cold.
Yeah.
So that's saved. When we execute that,
Something
we should
actually turned the
see.
light blue already. So
I think it's because I ran with that other
okay.
flow. So
Okay.
when we run this, we'll see the number, but that color won't change.
Well, let
Um,
me change it. Let me change it to something else right now.
okay.
I'll just change that real quick, and I'll make it red. And then so that should turn red. There we go. All right. So now it's red. So go ahead and run yours. My hands are off here, so you know I'm not doing it.
Adding some comments. All right, we're gonna run that again.
And we should
This
see
should
this turn
show
blue.
below 60, 57.
There we go. Turn blue
And it's
because it's
blue.
cold. All right. Hooray.
Oh, there we go. Yeah,
All right.
that's working. All right, now we need an example of hot. I know someone said Delhi is hot. So let's quickly actually wire this up again.
Can we
Yeah, I
just
still need
duplicate?
this.
Can we duplicate the like the red or the blue or green one? Can we just
Yeah,
duplicate that block?
Oh, you're right. I don't even need an if. Yeah.
Yeah, because we already have the
Very
if
big
else.
thing.
We just need the request block to be duplicated.
So let's zoom in a little bit so this is easier to see. When you hover over your block, this pops up so you can change the color of it. For example, we know this is changing it to green, so we can make that request green. When we want to copy it, we have this duplicate button where now this is like attached to my cursor. So wherever I click, it appears.
That's cool.
Let's move this out of the way. And we're going to drag from the initial statement when the temperature is greater than 80. When that's true, we want this request to run. Getting hard to see these lines. I have everything very densely packed. So same thing as before. I'm going to change this to red.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll run it. I won't do a debug for now because we know the other ones were working.
And you'll need to change the location to like Delhi or
Right, it's
Marseille
still cold
or something like
that.
Yeah.
I think Delhi's a little bit easier to spell. So.
All right, so we should see it turn red back here.
All right, it's running.
Hey, 92. Yeah,
There we go. That's hot.
toasty warm over in Delhi right now.
That's
for
air
sure.
conditioner, like and not going outside.
And we were supposed to be in Bangalore this week too, so
yeah,
we would have been right there in that heat. So.
Melting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so we got those wired up. We also had the fire and the air control. Kevin, if you just want to go and show the requests, those should both work now for the air quality and the fire. Instead of just doing it in flows, you can just go to the.
Okay. Did this wrong. I'm trying to change. Okay, we'll jump to the collection. So again, with the API, we have get fire and air events.
Yep.
Gonna switch to my environment. And when we run this, we should see fires.
Yep.
So we can
Now
see.
you can actually set both the insight for air and fires. Oh, did I not save my work?
It's because it's in my environment. Can you
Oh,
send me what that latitude is?
so the
Oh
latitude and
no.
longitude are actually they should be stored in the collection variables.
Yeah, you're right. It might be
So
because of current. Do we have to get that one?
maybe. Oh, well, no, I set them in initial value. So what's in initial value right now should send.
So we
Um,
might have to change current then real quick, just because
okay.
those are different on my end
Yeah.
at least.
Let me go grab that latitude and longitude for you.
Save this. Um, and run that again, and we should hopefully, unfortunately, see fire.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there we go. So we can see there's a red flag warning. Um, where? Southeast
So
Arizona.
yeah. And what I like about this is that there's actually like a whole bunch of latitude and longitude points to actually draw like a polygon. If you were to actually plot these things on a map, these are all the
Yeah.
latitude and longitude values of like where to draw and like connect all the lines so you can actually see like the area that's affected by that fire. But in this case we were just going to look at like the size of events and see like if there was anything in the events array, then there was a fire. If it was empty, then there's no fire. The nice thing about this is we can actually toggle both the air and the fire and have them both on. And the reason that part of why this wasn't happening before is because the buffer value is a range in kilometers, and it defaulted to a value of 1. And so by putting in the latitude and longitude of a city with only a 1 kilometer radius, there's no fire right in the city. But if you expanded it to 25 kilometers, then there's a fire just outside of the city. Then that's
Uh,
why we were seeing those things happen. So
that makes sense.
if you change the location to air underscore lat long, then we should see the air quality one, but you'll need to toggle that one on. You can keep both of the insights turned on.
Oh, okay.
It's just we won't see anything for fire, but there's our air quality coming in. So again, we were just going to check, was there anything in there? And again, it's showing you kind of the polygon. If you wanted to map that stuff out, you'd be able to draw that on. And it's basically
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's an air quality alert going on, stay inside, and so on. And again, we could turn these lights different colors using the same kinds of blocks that Kevin was doing in Flows. So, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we won't have enough time to implement that, but it would be a similar process where instead of this request, we're getting the other one, and then we would have a variable here as well for, I mean, the location we would still be able to change, but also the air quality alerts and that kind of stuff. And then that would be broken down into, again, similar if else. So instead of it being greater than 80, it might be like length or whatever for the array is not 0. Then we know there's air quality alerts. We would set the light to purple.
Mm-hmm.
But just to recap then really quick, in the last few minutes we have, when we hit run, our start block triggers running this request. So this is the API request that Ian built earlier. To get the current temperature data in a location, which he had defined as a variable in the request, and the units, which is also a request, or sorry, a variable in that request. And then we're outputting what that output looks like in here. So we can kind of see, just like when we run a request typically, where you can see the body and the header in the response. This is here in the output. That we break down into its path. So we're getting specifically the temperature average. Clicking on this, you can kind of navigate through that. And then we can debug and see, well, the temperature average right now in Delhi is 92. That then comes down that value into an if statement where we're comparing this value temp against, say, what we defined 80, that would be hot. Um, and then depending on that condition, it either breaks it down further into what would be cold or comfortable temperature to run another request. Similar to the start block, we're sending a set color request to control Ian's lights with that variable to blue,
Mm-hmm.
or I didn't want to drag that, green, and so on up here with red.
Yeah.
And that's the whole application. We took 2 requests, 3 requests, and
Yeah.
I mean, built like a whole application in less than an hour,
Yeah. It's pretty great.
and really with
And
very little technical backgrounds.
yeah. And so this again, kind of the idea that we wanted to sort of portray here was, I'm the developer. I can go in and I can add like all that pre-request script of how do I let Kevin give me just a string of red, green, blue, and actually do the work of figuring out, okay, well, what structure do I need to actually send to turn the light on and set it to a color and things like that. So Kevin just has a block that says, go turn the light red or green or purple or whatever. Obviously within the confines of like the colors that I allow. But then also showing how easy it was for me to go in and say, oh, you want to set your own location as a variable. Let me show you how I can just do that really quickly. I just make that a variable in a Postman request. And now Kevin's got a new variable value that he can set in Flows. So the idea with Flows is we internally, we call it a visual programming language. But for people that don't come from like a programming background, they still are going to have an understanding, like a basic understanding of like what is a loop. You're going to do something over and over again. What is an if else statement? If the microwave beeps, you open the door and you take the thing out of because your food's finished cooking. Like we understand kind of these basic concepts that we can put these blocks together. Like how do we evaluate something? And so there might be like a little bit of technical training, like Arlemy was asking, could we convert Fahrenheit to Celsius inside of here? Or do we give Kevin the ability to set that unit between metric and imperial? Or could we just set it as one and convert it and output it in either? There are a lot of different options there that we could use. So yeah, we wanted to kind of show like working as a team. You've got developers, you might have non-developers, and even non-developers can put this stuff together and build out a whole application using multiple APIs to actually do something really fun. So I know we've gone like a little bit over time. I did want to give a shout out, Kevin, if you can share my screen real quick. We've got an
Yeah.
intergalactic session coming up in just a couple of weeks, and it's free to register. But it's all about introduction to API security. And I'm basically going to be hosting a couple of our security engineers at Postman who are going to do a really deep dive on what is API security and how can you get started with implementing that inside of Postman. So go register for that. You can just do a Google search for Postman Intergalactic, and it'll take you over to the page where you can see all the upcoming sessions as well as the previous sessions as well. We put all of our previous sessions on YouTube. It's totally free. So you can go check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Postman, and you can go see all the videos. We put all these live streams online. We put all of our webinars online. We've got lots of other really interesting interviews and all kinds of content on there. Especially about all the new cool stuff that we're just launching today. We talked a little bit about it, all the blog posts. So definitely go check out our blog. We had just a ton of blog posts land today for all these cool new features that are out in Postman today. So definitely go check all those out. And thanks everyone for your patience, letting us go a little bit overtime and deal with some server issues on our side. But thanks for engaging in chat and giving us like locations to try and things like that. Really appreciate seeing everybody from around the world coming by. Kevin, anything you want to shout out? Any community shout outs you want to make?
Yeah, so let's actually get my screen on real quick. We're busy, honestly, year round with events, and as some of you probably know, live streams every week and a monthly webinar. If you're ever wondering what's going on, how to find out about some of these events, go to postman.com/events, and you can scroll through here to see everything that's coming up. So if you're in Kansas City, Missouri, don't miss Pooja's talk.
Yeah.
Additionally, next week we'll have Arlemy back on the live stream with Will Bishop from Miro, and they'll be creating a sticky notes dynamically in Postman. There's also looks like this one with you, Ian. So there's a lot
Yep,
of stuff coming
I'm
up
doing a
there.
whole workshop, and the Circle City Con is also free to register for. But yeah, I'm basically doing a 90-minute workshop on how to get again communicating within a team to come up with a JSON schema and then how to build mock servers and Postman with that. So yeah, our team's like going all over the place to do different kinds of events. Some of them are online, some of them are in person. But yeah, we're going to be posting all those events on that page, so definitely check that out.
And if there's any questions or anything like that, you can stop by the community forums at community.postman.com. Ask us any of your questions. We always have a ton of people around to help you out and stuff like that. Maybe share some of the stuff you're working on or just start a conversation. But yeah, that's, I think, everything from me.
Sweet. Cool. Well, we'll see
yeah,
everybody next week on the live stream. Thanks for hanging out today, Kev. Thanks for playing along and
it's a fun
playing with some lights
challenge.
and stuff. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good times. It's been a minute since we've done like a technical challenge, but we wanted to do something where both Kevin and I could get involved with doing something on the stream. So
Yeah.
appreciate everybody hanging out. Cool. I think otherwise we're good to wrap up. So
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next week.
all right. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.